We'll get underway. So you might want to find a comfy seat. We set out all of the seats, and what do people do? They sit on the benches at the back. Anyway,
put a cool picture up.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay.
And Lee.
Welcome, welcome everybody, and also a special welcome to Phil VK2 ASD, who is up in New South Wales. So welcome, Phil.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks for coming along tonight. We are going to be focusing on exactly what it says on the screen, which is electromagnetic radiation and the assessment thereof. A big thank you to the people that submitted, were brave enough to submit their antennas. There's a few in the room that we will be looking at once Phil's gone through the process. So, Phil, what I might do is get you to give us a bit of background on yourself, and then you can head into the presentation if you're okay with that.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Well, I think most people would know me. I've been in amateur radio since, well, I'm now 74, and I think I got a license when I was about 16. And I've been pretty active, not so much on air, but I tend to build things, and I've also been involved in the WIA, as you probably all know. My early start in amateur radio actually led to a career in telecommunications and electronics, and then I started up the vital call medical alarm business in about 1983, and I've been involved in medical alarms most of my most of my working life, although I'm now retired. When the NBN came in, I thought, and medical alarms went to 4G, I thought this is a good time to bow out, which is what I did. So that's basically me, and I'm coming to you now from the glorious suburb of Kenthurst, which is not too far from Dural, out in the bush, and you can see the my Collins gear behind me, which I'm active on occasionally when I'm out here, mostly on 40 meters AM. Okay, well I guess let's kick off. Justin, do you have anything you want to say first?
Just probably a bit of a special thank you to John VK4 JBE and the Bay District Amateur Radio Society, who have shared a lot of the material we're going to be showing tonight. So just that, over to you, Phil.
Yeah, okay, yeah, and John's been great actually with that. Okay, well, I guess the first thing that everybody is probably asking is, why does this matter, and why on earth would we be involved in EMR safety? We've been going along very nicely for as long as we've been radio amateurs without having to worry about it too much. So why should we worry now? And there's a few different parts to this, and I'm hoping at the end of this you'll say, yeah, this is something that's certainly worthwhile doing. So first of all, why would we do it? Well, the obvious one is the legal and safety requirement. There's been a long history of research in on the health effects of electromagnetic radiation, and more recently, and the research goes back years and years and years, and more recently, the World Health Organization, with our help from our Panzer, has basically determined that there is likely no health danger from mobile phone use and wireless technology use, and they did that through a study of all the available literature that's taken place, and they came up with the conclusion that there's no definite identifiable health effect. However, they're talking about mobile phones and Wi-Fi and things like that around the home. That's not us. We use high power, high frequencies, and high gain antennas, and we tend to be working in fields which are often higher than your average mobile phone, or certainly higher than your Wi-Fi around the home. So we need to take notice of this. ARPANSA sets the standards which are come down through the World Health Organization, the WHO, and ARPANSA standards, because of the potential for health effects and because the research that's been done for a long period of time is basically non-conclusive. It's not surprising that ARPANSA take a conservative approach. So they've set quite strict standards, conservative standards. And ACMA is the organisation in this country that's given the job of enforcing those standards through regulation. Now, ACMA have done this since 2003 by putting a condition on radio communications licenses, and they've done this for amateur radio, both with the old apparatus license and now with the class license. So that's been on your license conditions for an awful long time now, over 20 years. So that's another reason why we need to take some notice. And why are ACMA doing this? Well, my understanding is that ACMA are one of the few radio communications regulators in the world that have radiation safety as part of their remit. So they don't have any choice. They've got to do this. They've been given that job. In other countries, I believe it's done largely by different organisations. So perhaps that's not a condition that's so strongly enforced through radio communications regulation. So it's a condition of a licence, both apparatus and class. So we need to take notice from that point of view as well. Another reason why we might want to take notice of this is that we're trying to argue for higher power permits for radio amateurs through the scientific licensing regime or the experimental licensing regime. And for ACMA to give us this, they need to be convinced that we know what we're doing and we're going to take notice of it. Now, you might remember the last high power trial, which I think was about 2015 now, something like that, or about 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago. One of the reasons why we didn't get that, why that trial wasn't successful, was that ACMA were concerned about the level of awareness of radiation safety throughout radio amateurs, throughout the radio amateur population. They were concerned about other things. That wasn't the only reason. There were a number of other concerns they had. But a large one was the safety concern to members of the general public. And of course, the other thing is that, we're radio amateurs, we're into self-education, we're into experimentation, we're into self-education. So knowing the safety level of your standard and knowing that knowing that your station meets the compliance standards is a good thing to do, and it will teach you an awful lot about how to set up a station for radiation safety. So there's a number of reasons why we want to do this. And you'll notice as we go on here that the RF exposure is basically the scientific consensus is that there is a risk from high levels of radiation exposure, and that risk comes from, there's two ways it can hurt you. One is through tissue heating, and the other one is through electrostimulation. Now, tissue heating is, if you put food in a microwave oven and it gets hot, the same thing happens to a lesser extent if you stand in front of a high power radio source, and they limit or they determine exposure over a 6-minute time frame. So you'll find that all the tests and all the compliance work you do is averaged over 6 minutes, because they reckon that 6 minutes is the time it takes for the tissue to heat up significantly to be meaningful. The other way it can affect you is through electrostimulation of the nervous system, a bit like the old school experiment with electricity in frogs' legs, same sort of thing, but that's for lower frequencies. I think it's under 10 megs. They're also concerned about that. They're not so concerned about things like 6G, 5G, 6G, because that's only skin depth. So that's basically, they're concerned about heating and electrostimulation, and the heating effects are determined over a 6-minute period. Okay, now you want to put up the next slide, Justin?
Done.
The EMR assessment. Okay, what we've done at the WIA and through the Education Committee, and I don't know how many of you have seen the Education Committee website, but we've put together a flowchart that makes it simple to do an EMR assessment on your station. So basically, what you have to do is to assess the EMR radiation risk of your station for all transmitters, all transmitting antennas, all frequencies of operation, and at the highest transmitting power. So that might sound like a lot, but we've put together a flowchart which will help you do that. And what the flowchart will tell you is your station a high-risk station or a low-risk station? Now, or also, do you need to worry at all? If you're a foundation licensee, or if you're a mobile station, you don't need to worry. Foundation licensees run under 10 watts. It's considered to be very low risk. Mobile stations, because they're mobile, the exposure to a member of the general public is low, because the exposure time is going to be low. It might be a different thing for, if you put a 40-meter antenna on the back windscreen of your car, or even a 2-meter antenna on the back windscreen of your car, and you've got back passengers, that might not be so good. But generally, people inside the car are also protected to a certain extent by the car body. So for mobile or for foundation, you don't need to worry. The flowchart will also show you that stations that are running under 100 watts with antennas, with all parts of the antenna, all radiating parts of the antenna above 10 meters, are also deemed to be low risk. But as soon as you start going up in frequency, up in power, have antenna gain, bring the antenna down under 10 meters, you're then classed as a class 2 station, which is a high risk station. So we'll talk more about that later. But basically, the flowchart will help you determine how far you have to go in assessing your station, and also making any changes to your station you may need to make sure it complies. Where the antenna is classed as a class 2 station, we then take you to the RSGB calculator. Now, we're going to be playing with the calculator in a little minute, or Justin is. So the RSGB calculator is very simple. It's easy to use. I wouldn't say it's simple. It's actually quite complicated, but it's easy to use, and it will very quickly tell you whether your particular band, mode of operation, antenna, station configuration is class 1 or class is it will tell you whether it complies with the standard or not. It'll also tell you if you need to modify the station. And then after you've been through all this, you then have to record the results. And the calculator will give you a PDF printout for each of your station configurations. And that PDF printout will allow you to record your results and keep it in your station file in case one day you get a visit from a Commonwealth officer wanting to see if your station complies. And that may be the case, especially if we do get high power in the future. So some stations are more complicated than other stations. My station here, as you can see, is pretty simple. I've just got some Collins gear, ancient, operates on 40 meters, maybe 20 if I was really keen, maybe 80. And my antenna is a loop antenna, which is it's a delta loop antenna, and the narrow part is near the ground. So I would be a class 2 station. Because the antenna, the radiating part of the antenna is close to the ground. But everything else is pretty simple. So it'd be very easy for me to say this station just operates on 40 meters. I've got an antenna, pretty simple. I operate mostly on AM, sometimes on single sideband. However, a lot of you guys have got very complicated stations. You've got about 5 different transceivers, 100 different antennas, and you operate on everything from DC to daylight. So that becomes a bit of a recording problem. So if you go to the next slide, Justin, sorry.
Just come in, Bruce.
Can we ask a question?
Yeah. Hang on, Phil. We've got a question from the floor.
Yep.
I'm just wondering how much power you're transmitting into your loop.
I'm transmitting 100 watts on AM.
Peak or average?
120, I think it is, isn't it? But I can go more. If you look over here, I don't know whether it's in screen, there's a Class E transmitter sitting behind me with a Class D modulator.
Featured in our magazine.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. That'll go up to a kilowatt peak. Which on AM, if I wound it up, would be what, 250 average or something. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to be able to record these results and keep a copy in case for our own use, and also so we can prove that we've done these assessments. And so if we do get a visit from a Commonwealth officer, we can show them that we've actually gone through the process and we've determined our station is safe. And this flowchart was put together by John, VK4JBE, and the and BDARS, the Bayside District Amateur Radio Society in Brisbane. And you'll find across the top there's a number of systems, and each one of those systems is a station configuration that you would use. So you might use a transmitter into 3 different antennas, perhaps depending on the band, 3 different bands or 6 different bands, and you can build this out as much as you want just by making more copies. So you put down in each of those columns the system that you're likely to use on any particular frequency, on any particular band. And then you run the test through the flowchart and through the RSGB calculator, and we'll get to the flowchart in a sec. And then coming out of the results, you will note down under EMR safety requirements, which is at the bottom, you'll note what station modifications you've had to do, or what the conditions are that you have to impose on your station to meet to make each of those systems compliant. So it's quite a good little spreadsheet. It's a really nice spreadsheet. And then right down the bottom, you'll see there's a statement of compliance. And after you've gone through this, you'll sign and date that statement of compliance to say that you've done it and you comply. Now, you'll notice the regulation actually talks about a declaration of compliance rather than a statement. But for now, we think that a statement of compliance is the first step, and hopefully, because a declaration is a more legally binding document, we feel that a statement of compliance is the better way to go. Okay, you want to bring up the spreadsheet, Justin? Okay. Now, there's the spreadsheet we came up with, and you start up the top where it says start here, and you run down, and you'll find that I can't see it from here. I'll have to look at the screen over here. So you'll find that the first thing it asks you is, are you a foundation station? You say, no, I'm not a foundation station. If you are, your compliance level 1, no further action required. Next thing it'll ask you is, are you a mobile station? And you say, no, I'm not a mobile station, I'm a home station. If you're a mobile station, no compliance, your compliance level 1, no further action required. You say, no, I'm a home station. Then it asks you, are you a fixed station using 100 watts or less? And you say, yes, I'm using 100 watts or less. Then it'll take you over and it'll ask you about your antenna. Is your antenna greater than 10 meters above the ground? And you say yes. And then it'll take you up to compliance level 1 again. And then you'll run across horizontal again if it's less than 10 meters above the ground. And if it's less than 10 meters above the ground, or if your station is running over 100 watts, or if the gain of your antenna is greater than 10 dBi, it takes you down and says your compliance level 2. So it's a really easy little spreadsheet to follow for each station configuration. And then it asks you to run the RSGB calculator. And if you run the RSGB calculator and it tells you you comply with the standard, then it takes you over to that little green box at the bottom, and it says you've got to record the findings in the station file record and store them in the station file and sign the statement of conformity. If you don't, if your station doesn't pass, if you don't meet the standard, it takes you up to the pink box and it says you've got to make modifications. And so in some of the notes to this flowchart, it tells you about the modifications you can make to the station, and the most effective modification is to increase the antenna height or to put in an exclusion zone around the antenna. Now, we'll talk about exclusion zones later, but because of the inverse square law of electromagnetic radiation, the most effective thing you can do is increase the distance between a person and the radiating antenna. Okay, so you want to take us to the calculator just now. Here's the RSGB calculator. So if you're not station compliance level 1. If you find your compliance level 2 from the spreadsheet, you bring up the RSGB EMR calculator. And as I said before, this is a really nice calculator to use. The things in the yellow boxes you can change, and the things in the blue boxes are the results of calculations or some fixed parameters that come out of the calculator. So that calculator going across on the left, you see you put in some information about the type of transmitter you've got, and it asks you whether what frequency you're on. It'll ask you the mode. It'll then come up with a mode factor of 100%, but you can actually you put in the transmitter power, and that mode factor, by the way, depends on the type of mode you put in. You put in the transmitter power, and then you put in, it will come back and it will say the transmit percentage in 6 minutes. Remember, we said 6 minutes is the time they use to determine the heating factor. It'll put in automatically 100%, but you can change that. So you can then go in there and change that percentage. I think, yeah, it's not on here, but it comes up with a box. You can change both the mode, you can change the transmit mode, you can change the power, and you can change the transmit percentage in 6 minutes. So if you reckon you only transmit for 5 seconds on and 5 minutes 55 seconds off, then you'd probably want to reduce that. Then you come across to the feeder and you put in some information about the antenna feeder you're using, and it's got some stored feeders in there, and it will work out the loss for you at that particular band, and it'll then give you an average power to the antenna and a peak power to the antenna down the bottom. And then you come across the antenna on the right hand side, and it'll ask you the type of antenna you put in. Now, there's a whole lot of different stored antennas in there. So you pick one out and you put in it will determine the antenna gain from the type of antenna that you put in. The interesting thing is it changes the list of antennas depending on what frequency you put in over on the left-hand column under the radio. So if you put in 40 meters, it's liable to come up with dipoles and loops and 3-element Yagis and 5-element cubical quads and goodness knows what else. But if you put on there 70 centimeters, you're going to have a different batch of antennas come up. So it's quite clever in that respect. Or if you put in a microwave frequency, you'll get dishes coming up and parabolic reflectors, and you'll get helixes and all sorts of things. It asks you for the antenna polarization, and then it asks you for the height of the antenna above the ground and antenna gain. And it comes up with an EIRP, and it uses that EIRP together with the height of the antenna above the ground to give you a compliance factor. And if you go down further, where the green section is, it'll tell you whether you're low power compliant, whether you're compliant or whether you're not compliant with the standards. And then it will, hang on, I'll just have a look at the one I've got here, which is a bit easier.
With no feed.
Well, it's saying there's zero loss.
Yeah,
that's what they're saying in
Yeah.
this particular diagram. I'll just mention, Phil, the green box says it's class 1 or it's compliant. As soon as it's not compliant, it goes red, And you'll see, because we're going to play with this shortly, it then gives you a couple of diagrams as well, which is how you work out the exclusion zone. It gives you that information diagrammatically. So, yeah, if it's green, you're compliant. That's
So this is probably a good time, Justin, for you to maybe go into some examples.
Okay.
And work out, and I think you'll see from these examples that we go through, I think you'll see that, this is not too onerous. There's, unless you're into something really esoteric, you'll be surprised just how easy this is going to be to comply.
And it gives you, Phil, the one thing I really like is it gives you, it's very interactive, because if it's not compliant, or you've got an exclusion zone that's not, going to be difficult for you, you can start to play with the figures and actually see what you have to do. Do you have to raise the antenna? Do you have to actually find a different location? Do you have to think about how you're going to set up an exclusion zone or whatever? So you can, it's very interactive as to how you can work out what you're going to do.
Yeah, it makes it very, very easy. Very easy to understand what's going on. And also very easy to determine, the compliance of your station. Yeah, it's something we all should be doing. It's not hard.
This exclusion zone's got me intrigued. They talk about.
We'll talk about that later.
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
Hold that thought, because we've got a bit of a discussion after we go through some of these examples, a discussion about exclusion zones, because the jury is not out on exclusion zones. So there's a bit of a discussion point that we've got. So hold that thought. So Phil, and thank you to all the people, and they're listed here, who put in some example antennas. I've sort of grouped them together, and what I'm intending to do in the next couple of slides is go through and work some of these solutions.
It's interesting to see how anonymous comes up.
Well, and one of the reasons why anonymous is in there is actually it's
Future-proof.
compliant. So we'll see it. We'll do the calculations. So it's still a class 2. It still needs a reasonable exclusion zone, but a 4-element Yagi on a 10-meter tower running 1,000 watts is actually compliant.
With a special license.
Oh, correct. With a high power license.
As long as it doesn't lean forward.
Well, and in the, I don't know whether you've got significant winds up there, Phil, but we have significant winds that I'm hearing outside right at the moment. So
No, it's a beautiful day up here in Sydney today. But my son lives in Hobart, and his so he'll be copying it.
Yeah, well and truly. So now I'm not intending to go through all of these. I'll show you what I've done is use the spreadsheet that Phil outlined earlier. Been through each of these, but there's a couple of these that I actually want to go through and work through as a work solution. So the very first one, which is and thank you to David, who I think's online, and Ron, and also Lance, who put in the NFED half waves. Now, David and Ron both gave me 10 watts as the maximum amount of power. Can I just say that's compliant? It's compliant from the start. It's class 1. It'll come up green, and I can show you. It comes up green on the EMR calculator. So if you go through the flowchart, and the example that I'm going to show you, which came from John, VK4 JBE, he actually has printed out the flowchart 4 times and gone through and circled each bit and and actually written on the flowchart the particular system and the antenna that he's assessing, and he's included that in his little manual of assessment. So for 10 watts, it's compliant. However, if we bump the power up, and I'll show you how we do that in a second. If we bump the power up to 100 watts, then it becomes class 2. So then there actually needs to be a minimum compliance distance that comes up, but the minimum compliance distance is 1.6 meters. So for an antenna, to get an antenna of an end-fed half wave up away from anywhere that people can actually touch it, it just needs to be 1.6 meters. And it's safe then. It's actually compliant. So
Oh, you can't get your little head around what I've been told. A lot of it's frequency dependent.
Well and truly.
Which you'll find,
yeah. And we're only talking, in this particular case, this is 80 to 10 meters.
So I have to do analysis on all of ours.
Yep.
And I forgot what the software package was that has actually done it. But to give you an idea, I run 4 combined repeaters into one antenna,
yep,
which is a folded dipole array,
yep,
of 11 dBi tropic.
Yep.
But
that'll be different for each frequency.
All on say 70 SEMS.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So and I'm running total power out of the combiner of about 5.3 watts and through 50 meters of heliax, and I only just comply for public exposure.
Okay.
Yeah. So you think, oh, yeah, this would be good. So gain and the power, I'm not running much power.
Yep.
When you think about it.
No, well and truly.
So, but back to your example with the kilowatt at HF, and it complies.
If you've got that distance,
yeah,
that's the thing about it.
The key thing.
So what are there any questions in relation to the end-fed half wave? I'm happy to put it in the calculator so you can see it. I was going to put a few of the others in there, but the key thing here is on 10 watts for that particular antenna, you're compliant. If you want to run 100 watts in there, then the calculator says 1.6 meters at least.
What, above ground, or people must keep away from it?
Away from.
No, that's a radius. So
Correct. And I'll show you the little diagram that it comes up with.
I'll just make the point, Justin, that when I did it for mine, I assumed that it would either, the maximum exclusion would either be on, because I did to 6 meters, either 6 meters or it's going to be 160 meters.
Yeah.
And from memory, it wasn't. It was one of the intermediate bands. And so you actually have to
go
through all the bands to find the one with the maximum exclusion.
Yep. And you do have to key through each of them. And if you've got, it's like the other thing,
which is quick and easy to do once you've got all the parameters in.
The other thing that changes that is the TX mode, because you'll notice I put in here SSB/FT8, and there are a whole range of modes that are available in the calculator. I'll show you those in a sec. But there is a difference, because at SSB, the TX time that it automatically puts in there is 20% of the time, whereas for FT8, it's 42%, not 50%, which is what I thought it would be, but it's 42%. And then if you were to go, and Phil's example, go to AM, it's 100%. You've got a carrier all the time. And if it's FM, for the others, you'll notice all of them are 100% for FM, and it's well and truly.
But that's assuming you're transmitting in blocks of 6 minutes.
Oh, correct. And
don't incriminate yourself, Greg.
Been known to waffle, but 6 minutes every over is probably.
Can you hold that thought? Because there's an interesting little nuance in the calculator, and I'm not sure whether I'm using the calculator right or not, and I'm interested in people's opinion. So
I'm interested in the polarization affecting the figure?
Well, polarization is interesting because up in the microwave bands, polarization does present other exclusion zone parameters.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, are people comfortable with that? I'm happy to run through it if you want me to run through it.
Shame it doesn't have the EIRP at the bottom of each column.
Well, and we can do it. We can do it if we get time. I'm conscious of time, and I was just going to do a couple of these so you can actually see, and we can play with the parameters when they're in there. So the next one I put on there, which is one of my antennas, it is one of wonderful Rex's Yagis, 19-element Yagis on 23 centimetres. Now, the advantage I've got with that Yagi is it's up 10 metres. It's on top of the roof. I'm in a two-storey place. It's out of reach. It's everything. And so I run 25 watts on there. There's only about 12.5 watts gets to the antenna because of the crappy feed line. But it's still 12.5 watts on a significantly high gain antenna. And so it is compliant at 10 metres because those exclusion zones are all met. So compliant, and you'll notice that the note I've put in here is I put into the calculator that it's 10 metres above ground, which is compliant at ground level. If I'm up on the roof,
Yeah. Or somebody on your second floor.
Oh no, because it's above the roof. Going well, and there's no neighbours which are directly in line.
What about in your own house?
Interesting. Tin corrugated iron roof.
Yeah, I mean it's probably okay, but it's one of those quirks.
But aren't the whole RPNs standards based on the general public and not your private residents or yourself?
Well, one is an RF aware person, and the other one's not.
It's worth making a clarification because what that flow chart actually says, it doesn't say 10 metres high or 10 metres away. It says, can the general public get to within 10 metres?
Yeah, and
that's the 10 metre.
And they will.
I assume that includes neighbours then as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's in the middle of the block and it's 10 metres away from every fence.
So I've got a question about the compliant level. If you've got an antenna that's mounted on the ground, ground mounted, say quarter wave antenna, obviously you've got no height on that, then your only option is horizontal distance exclusion.
Well and truly.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Put a rope around it at whatever the exclusion zone is.
Well, if you've got your antenna up against a fence, move it away from the fence.
Correct.
So many metres.
Well and truly.
Yeah.
So would that mean that my centre fed dipole, that I have the ends at the end of the fence tied to the fence, inverted V, and there's a walking track behind my fence, does that make me non-compliant then in that case?
No, your foundation. You're 10 watts.
10 watts maximum. Even though there's people walking past.
That's right.
Hold on.
Go through the
10 watts, you're compliant.
It's still compliant.
Why don't you go through the thing, Justin?
Yeah. Okay. I'll go into it. I can, because it's much easier to show you. It's actually much easier to show you. Let me just find.
It actually looks more complicated than it really is.
Oh no, and spot on.
Because I was panicking because I've got a microwave Yagi that's on my deck, and it's about 2 meters away from one of my operating points. So I was panicking.
So
it's sideways, so there's nothing coming out.
This is
well within the limit. This
is a calculator. So you'll notice I have put in here. This is actually anonymous, Yagi. So we've got 40 meters. 40 meters you put in here. It chooses a frequency in there. It's single sideband. Automatically, it's saying the mode factor is 20 dB. Transmitter power is 1,000 watts. Now, transmit percentage in 6 minutes. Now, I've assumed in most cases, the calculator, that if the mode factor is 20%, the transmit percentage in 6 minutes is 20%. Now, I'm open.
No, that's not right.
No, that's not right.
That's not right, because sideband isn't a carrier wave.
Okay. Yes.
And that's where the 20% comes from.
Okay.
Yeah, so the amount of energy in the transmission is about 20% of what it could be.
100%.
It's like having 20-watt carrier.
100%. That's okay.
Oh, we can go past 50%. You talk for 3 minutes and listen for 3 minutes.
What's the thoughts?
Not you, mate.
No. Because I have in these calculations assumed that the transmit percentage in 6 minutes is the same as the mode factor. Now, Phil, you piped up there.
Yeah, no, you were incorrect.
Okay.
I'm afraid.
No, that's fine.
What should it be?
So what should it be?
The mode factor just depends on the mode. It's just the transmit energy.
Yeah, okay.
So transmit percentage in 6 minutes is a physical duty cycle.
That's the
How long?
talk time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 50%?
Well, that'd be 3 minutes, right?
If it's a one-to-one conversation, if it's a bloody
Just hover over
yeah.
that again. Interesting. It says that for WSJT you use 100%.
Mode factor.
No, this is transmit percentage in
This is
6
transmit
minutes.
percentage.
Yeah, I would have thought that was the.
It comes up automatically with 100%, and it then allows you to vary it. But you'll find that it will always come up. It'll assume 100%.
So FT8, 42%.
Yeah, but if you hover over that, it's saying
That 42% is based on the fact that it's only transmitting on
100%. You
period.
don't usually transmit for 6 minutes straight on FT8.
And if FT8 and 4 are 50%, I would put in 50%.
Yes, that's an error.
I might be looking at taking into account spectral density for the mode.
Okay.
But the power, average power during a transmission is 100%.
If you run an FT8 for 6 minutes, you wouldn't be transmitting for 100% of the time.
No.
That's 50% of the time.
Yeah.
That's right.
You got to go.
But the mode factor should be 100%.
Let's do worst case.
Yes,
worst
okay.
case.
I agree.
No,
Yeah.
worst case, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. So transmit percentage in 6 minutes.
On SSB.
And then
On SSB,
Yeah.
well and truly.
and you only probably do transmit for 42% because it's the time when it receives at the end of each period.
Correct. So that's how they come up with the mode factor of 42%.
Which they haven't done that quite right, but yeah.
Okay. Now, feeder, I've assumed 213, 20 meters of it, and at those sort of frequencies, there's not much loss. So it drops a little bit here. 4-element Yagi, 10 meters up in the air, horizontal polarization. And I haven't put in any of the other parameters. You'll notice it says, yes, it's class 2, so it's red. It gives me two diagrams, which is there are two standards here, which is the 1998 standard and the 2020 standard. The compliance distance is 10.2 meters. So vertical separation of 8.2 and the required separation at ground level is 6.1. That assumes a person of 1.8 meters high. If you zoom in here, they're 1.8 meters high. So
when you said there's two different standards,
some tall bloke comes along and buggers it up.
Guidebooks explode.
Well,
when you're too tall to go underneath my
the 1998 gives you a compliance distance of 10.2 and the 2020 gives you a compliance distance of 9 meters. So slightly less. Slightly less, 9 meters.
9 meters. So they tightened it up.
So these things here are UK, ITU, whatever. How does that affect Australia's standards?
It's the same.
We copied them or they copied us?
We copied them.
Right, okay, good.
Yeah, but our radio waves are upside down.
That's a northern hemisphere.
So, questions? You saw what we did there.
Can you change the polarization and see what difference it makes?
Good thinking, 99.
Vertical 4-element Yagi on 40 meters.
No difference.
The antennas haven't rotated.
On the diagram.
Hold that thought though for
There's no rotators on
microwave side.
Because that puts the elements closer to the ground.
If you drop the height of the antenna down to like,
I'm surprised that taking into account the general public, but they're not making any allowances for members of the family.
5.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
So okay, basically it's saying you have to be further away from it, but you don't have to be as high.
Well, you're the same height.
Well,
but
yeah,
you need to
sorry,
be
yeah.
further away.
Yeah.
And you'll notice these have changed colour, because if I go to 10 metres,
That's 100 metres. Jesus, that's a big tower.
10. Yeah. Well, if I go to 20 metre tower, you'll notice these have changed to green.
Intrinsically safe.
So that means you can be directly
Directly underneath it.
Unless you're 7 foot.
Whereas for a 10 metre tower, you actually need to be 3.7 metres further out from the tower. So the exclusion zone is 3.7 metre radius around the tower. Now, for most towers in the backyard, that's probably achievable. You'd have a fence in the backyard, maybe a gate.
What about the council rules about 10-metre tower?
Well, most councils allow 10-metre towers.
Do they?
Like you put in 20,000.
So long as the 10 metres is not 10 metres higher than the highest part of your roof.
That depends on whether it's attached.
You put in Damien Station.
Nice.
It's a minefield, can I just say? So not going to go there, not going to go there. But can you see, with playing with the parameters, how you can then work out how you can actually be compliant in your location? So the other one I wanted to do, so questions, any questions that I can show you with this particular setup?
Well, with a Yagi, presumably the side lobes are going to be less.
Okay.
Before you go,
change
this duty cycle from 100 to 50.
Yeah,
what does that do?
But you to the side of it.
The transient
Transmit in 6 minutes.
takes 3.
Software we
Okay.
plots it so you get an actual.
It's under this 1998 standard,
Right. Yeah.
you're actually compliant,
You safe, yeah.
whereas this one's still got the same arrangement. And this is the one that that is a more modern.
So hold on. When you say compliant, you mean you're compliant standing directly underneath it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Whereas
that,
here,
you're still compliant as long as you're including
3.7 metres out from the bottom of the tower.
Yeah. Justin, I've got a question about the two solutions that you're given.
Mm.
Are you able to choose which solution you use, or do you have to use the worst case solution?
I'd be using the worst case.
Okay.
Well and truly.
Sorry, the most restrictive solution.
Correct.
Yep.
Presumably the 2020 is the one you have to use, the most modern.
Why would they bother putting the other one up?
And our Panzer, the Panzer standard. What date was on the Panzer standards, Phil?
I think it was 2013.
It was 2013, and that's when they went to their internationally aligned standard, which is the one that's referred to here, the S1/R1,
which has to be 1998.
Before 2020.
Yeah, well,
Which would be the 1998 one, yeah.
Just later.
I don't know whether it's been changed since then.
And it's look up this is the UK standard, whereas the ITU TK51 is the actual ITU standard. So that we all link back to.
So, sorry, going back to my question about sideways. I noticed there was a directional bias you can put in, but I didn't know what to put in there for the DB.
Directivity factor.
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah.
If you got that pointing straight up and just straight down, surely you're not going to be compliant. If you
the directivity factor is actually to do with side lobes, because you can put in up to 15. I think it's up to 15. 15.
So in that case, you'd model your antenna, find out what
they are.
Find out what your gain is in that direction where someone would be standing, and you put that in as a negative value.
Culturally.
I could just model that in
MMA or NEC4 or whatever.
Yeah, that's easy. I think it's actually got a built-in model anyway for that.
Yeah, under antenna types, there's a custom antenna that you can.
Yeah. So and can I just say under antenna types, that's an excellent segue, Phil, because there is the reference antenna of 0 dBi, which is your effectively your isotropic radiator, your reference antenna, and that's at the top of all of the lists. Just to show you, you'll notice here, so this is 40 meter HF antenna. You've got 2 element Yagis, you've got delta loops, you've got G5RVs, half wave dipoles, inverted Ls, which is what I use for the NFED half wave. Log periodics, long wires, even mag loops actually, which is fantastic because I put them in to work out mine, etc. So if I change this to 2 meters, so we go up in frequency and I pull this list down, you'll notice that we've still got the Yagis in there. We've got longer Yagis, we've got collinears, we've got half-wave dipoles, rubber duckies, slim jims, etc., as well as the custom, which is at the bottom of every list. So what Phil was saying earlier is as you change your frequency, it also adjusts the most commonly used antennas for that particular frequency. So the last one I was going to do, which is a little bit controversial because Phil mentioned earlier that under the flowchart, we've got, if you key out the flowchart, you get to, it asks questions about whether you're mobile or not. Now, if you put in here, we won't run 1,000 watts mobile, we'll run 25 watts mobile.
Yay, great.
Leaves that at 50% or 51%. And we'll run FM, so key down full power. We're probably running not quite as long a piece of RG58, so there's a little bit of loss there. And we go to vertical dipole. That'll do. Effectively a ground plane. And it's vertical. And it's not 10 meters above the ground. It would be a meter above the ground.
Oh. Did you tell us it was mobile?
Sorry?
Did you tell us it was mobile?
No, because there's nothing around it being mobile or not mobile.
Change the vertical dipole to something with a bit of gain, though.
There was earlier, though, wasn't it?
Well, no, change it to a collinear.
Yeah.
1.3 collinear, which you could have on a bull bar. You've still got a separation of 1.5 meters.
I have a radiation detector supplied by work, and all the way around work, it doesn't register at all. I sit in the vehicle and key up my radio, and it goes to 200%. So when it says mobile is intrinsically safe, not for the operator.
But that's 2 meters.
Well, 2 meters, 70 centimeters. Okay, it's a 70 centimeter collinear.
That's 10 meters, I'm buggered.
It's actually more. You need 2 meters of separation. So, but one of the key things with mobile operation is, and to do with mainly the public and walking past your car and your bull bar, is you can see them and stop transmitting.
Remember the limits for an aware user are quite a lot higher than the limits for the general public.
Sure.
It's about 5 times higher. It rings a bell. Quite
sticks for a tower worker over general public.
Yeah, it's quite a lot higher.
Yeah.
So then it becomes, what's the definition of an aware user? Certainly the operator's aware. Is the passenger of a vehicle aware? Who knows? I'm a sailor, so I often think about the person on the wheel
on the backstay.
standing just in front of the backstay, with 100 watts coming out of it.
So when you say 5 times more, Phil, does that mean that this calculator's got built-in quite
No,
a
this-
large safety margin?
The Arpanza standards have got a large safety margin built in, all those ITU standards that they're based on. There's a large safety margin in those standards.
It's because the tower worker is a sub. It's assumed that the tower worker has a lot more RF knowledge about being in and out of those danger areas.
So
and
radiation
will
patterns,
also
et cetera.
carry dosimeters with them as well.
Well and truly. Well and truly. So
There's also different standards for different parts of the body. So, for instance, the exposure to the head from a mobile phone is a lot higher actually than the exposure than the general the whole body exposure.
Yep. And what I put in here is a 10-watt handheld with a rubber ducky antenna. Now, I don't know whether there is a 10-watt. I know there's an 8-watt. There's a 10-watt. There is a 10-watt.
And is that compliance, is it?
10 watts.
Yeah. There's no exclusion zone. There's no nothing.
Hang on, let me get my 10 watt now thing.
So
And the most susceptible part of your body is your eyeballs, followed by your gonads.
But it's worth pointing out that if you follow the spreadsheet, you would never get here for that.
no,
handheld.
you'd never get here.
No.
Well and truly.
And that, I think a lot of the scenarios we've been speaking about, you would never get to the calculator to start with.
Correct.
That's right.
So
Yeah, especially the distance one as well.
Yeah.
Like, is your antenna 10 meters away from the nearest accessible portion, bit for where the public can be? And if it's not in the middle of your backyard, then you're compliant.
Oh no, correct. And so and the mobile option here, you get down to, are you a mobile station using 100 watts or less? Yes.
Yes, green.
So
Someone might want to run a kilowatt mobile.
that'd be interesting. Key down and stole the car. Something.
And that's an ACMA decision, basically. My understanding. It's basically built on practicality.
Who built the flowchart?
You're looking at
I built the flowchart. The RSGB built the calculator.
the calculator.
Okay, right.
So,
But I would say that flowchart, the basis of that flowchart is work that was done between Keith Malcolm and Gilbert Hughes, and they both worked for ACMA, or Gilbert did. Did Keith work for ACMA? I'm not sure. And an ACMA official back in 2003. So that flowchart is directly taken from that work that was done with ACMA. So it's not as if it's just come out of the blue.
So any final questions about the calculator or the flowchart? The key thing I'd ask, and what we'll do is in the video description, we'll put in all the links to all of the various bits and pieces that we're showing you. Have a play. Please, please, please have a play, especially with the flowchart. And if the flowchart puts you into the calculator, have a play with the calculator, or have a play with the calculator, because it tells you an awful lot of things. Once you've done all of this and you've played with the calculator, you've been sent off the calculator, you do the calculations, you then take those parameters, that PDF that that was one thing I was going to show you, sorry. If you get to a point where you go, okay, that's great, that's where I am, you can save this as a PDF and it saves off exactly what you've just done and tells you it's compliant.
And the notes? You didn't put any notes and none of printed.
No. I correct. Unknown user. If I put in the user and I put in the other stuff, it all appears at the top. But so that you can then grab and you put together. And what I've got here, John VK4JBE supplied a fantastic example. So he's got a cover sheet that says the EMR Safety Management Book. And can I just say, John, John works in Telstra, in mobiles in Telstra, and is involved with EMR measurements around their mobile facilities. So he comes with a degree of experience, a high degree of experience here. So he's put this all together. You'll notice, here's his spreadsheet, and he's put a whole lot more information in here. And you were talking about the same a multi-band antenna for different, this is different frequencies, so VHF, UHF, SHF. And he's put in each parameter for each of those frequencies, etc., etc. And then, importantly, what the safety requirements are so that he can comply down the bottom. And then he's put the flowchart in here, and he's keyed out the flowchart by hand through here. And this is his antenna system 1, HF antenna class 1, so it's compliant. System 2, it's also compliant. It's class 2. It's not compliant. So he's gone off to the calculator, and he's then got the PDF. So here's the PDF of his that he's went through with the system 2 satellite antenna, 2-meter satellite antenna, and he's put a big ring around the 2020 limits. So these are the compliance distances he needs, and then he's done it the same thing for the. So that was the VHF. He's done it for the UHF, and he's then done it for the system 3, which is class 1. It's compliant. And he's put all of this into one document. And if you want to see a really sexy document, ask Lance, because Lance has put pictures and all sorts of stuff in there. It's just you know, and the 590 is sort of highlighted. It's got these big lights around it. Sorry, old joke. And he's put it all into this book, and that's the thing he can show. If somebody turns up and says, "Okay, I'm worried that are your antenna systems compliant, etc., etc." That's what he can show them, and he's done the calculations and used the calculator and the flowchart to get there. So yeah.
I guess a lot of that has to do too with your own education about if you're running, FT8, how much power you actually can run to be compliant. You might not have an antenna that's perfectly compliant that you can't move, but you could reduce the power down.
Well, true.
To 20 watts instead of 100 watts or something like that.
Spot on. And that's how you tell that you're compliant. Do the calculator and find out, and you may need to drop your power. If you can't actually move things, or you can't actually create an exclusion zone, you may have to drop your power. So yeah.
Where do you get the calculator from?
Okay, all of those links will be in the video description, and we'll send out that it'll be with the broadcast and also in the newsletter. So all of the links and bits and pieces. Now, what's the feel?
I was just going to say, if you go to education.wia.org.au, it's all there.
Yes.
And go to the club resources section.
Spot on. Now, we were going to finish off with a bit of a discussion about what constitutes an exclusion hazard zone. So, yeah. Cool.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's a couple of obvious questions here, and the jury is still out on these things. One is, what does constitute an exclusion zone? Can it be simply a lock gate on a property? Can it be a wire or rope around the exclusion zone with a sign hanging off it, perhaps? As far as towers are concerned, can it be just something to prevent people climbing the tower, like a pull-up ladder? Those things are all really yet to be determined, and we need to, I guess we can lead the way a little bit on the discussion, but ultimately that's something that the WIA is going to have to discuss with ACMA. What actually is a reasonable exclusion zone, but I think you can. I think it's a matter of common sense. Is it as simply as pointing a gain antenna in a direction away from people. What actually is the exclusion zone? The other thing is what happens with members of the family. Are they considered to be aware users if they're given instructions? So that's another thing. My feeling is they're probably not, because visitors arrive in properties. It's too hard to police.
But the operator would know of the family and take precautions.
Well, yeah, that's quite possible. Yeah. All these things are open for discussion, and really that discussion has to occur between the WIA and ACMA at some point at a high level. But hopefully they'll do that. Hopefully that discussion will take place. But I think it's some time off.
Oh, sure. And I just point out one of the things I didn't point out in the if I just go back a step, system 3, I put in there, which is Richard's 1.8 metre dish. 1.8 metres at 25 watts at 10 gigs. The compliance distance is 32 metres out the front of the dish. But the key thing there is that's out the front of the dish.
Just usually pointing at the sky.
That's mostly pointed at the sky.
And that's where that directionality figure would come along.
Well, you need to know your beam width.
Very narrow.
So that was one I didn't point out. But it is relatively easy to comply because it's mostly pointed at the sky.
At the end of a QSO when you're right on the horizon.
Correct.
So if you're a terrestrial 10 gig station, it'd be different.
Oh, yeah. Well and truly.
Especially if you were operating on one side of a road and cars were driving in front of you. That's not perfect.
They're not going to be there for 6 minutes, are they?
Something like Mount Wellington, for example.
So thoughts on exclusion zone. Interested in what people think.
Well, I can run an electric fence on my property boundary with no signage or anything, and that gives people a bigger boot than the RF's going to give you.
Don't try to stay there for 6 minutes.
Carefully, but anyway.
I think one of the problems you've got with signage, though, is if you put a sign up, instantly some neighbours will go, "Oh, hang on, you're causing all my problems."
I think the general acceptance of permitted entry to a property is from the front gate to the front door, shortest route there. If you go down the drive, you're likely to meet a dog. If you go around the other side, you're going to fall off the unbuilt pathway and do damage to yourself.
Yep.
So common sense is front door, callers can come there, meter readers can come there, or whatever, but elsewhere it's trespassing. So I think that's exclusion.
Well, if you look at what exclusion zone is normally taken from a code of practice, because if you look at where this will end up going, it's going to go somewhere where there'll be some sort of legal definitions and everything in it. And an exclusion zone, it doesn't actually define what makes the exclusion. It can be barrier type. Normally what comes with that zone is signage, which clearly delineates, hey, do not cross this boundary. So it's going to be something with signage. Long term, I could see what that would be.
You can't read. So do the regulations require you to state how your exclusion zone is maintained?
No. And that's why this is the jury's out.
Yep. I think it's also worth just remembering we're not trying to find a legal definition to be able to do as much as we can. We're actually trying to protect the public.
Yes.
And so as much as
that we're protecting the public.
Yeah, well, we should want to be trying to protect the public. So if I've got an unfenced front garden that someone from the street can access easily. You know, you might say, if you're not on the footpath straight to my front door, then you're somewhere you shouldn't be. But if there's kids that kick balls and dogs that will run and the neighbour's got to go and get the dog, like, it's a reasonable thing that they're there. And so, yeah, we need to be careful about what we can get away with, what we think we can get away with by the rules, and what the whole point of this exercise is.
I've got a question for Phil, and this might be not out of the scope of what we've been talking about. But if you go through your station setup and you realise that your antenna is not high enough, and you go and apply to the council to get an exemption for a higher antenna, would you recommend, or would you say that it would be a good thing to use the documentation that you've used to prove that it would make your station more compliant, or do you think that that's a thing that you just wouldn't touch with a 10-yard pole?
I think the council would be more likely to be considering visual impacts to neighbours. If you
Because there was
like a block somewhere, yeah, sure, you know.
Because wasn't there somewhere in New South Wales where they debated that, and they ended up,
in New South Wales, it's a 10-metre rule.
Yeah. Because I think generally here it's like 6 metres, isn't it? Above the highest point of.
Yeah, I think there's it's in two sections in New South Wales, one or two parts. One is the 10-metre rule, and there's another one about height above the maximum peak on a roof.
Okay.
But generally it's the 10-metre rule.
I just thought if they asked for justification, why do you want it higher, you could say that you want to comply with the.
I don't think I understand it.
There's some councils here that would say, in that case, you're trying to exceed our height limit, therefore you can't do it.
Well, they might say it's dangerous.
Yeah, but that's why you're putting in the application.
Yeah. Yes, but they'll take the other side view and say that you're trying to do something that's not allowed.
Or they'll
Maybe.
But they might also say that
that's why you put the application in.
You're endangering the public, so therefore we're not going to give it to you because it could cause more danger. But I understand why you do it.
You can.
No, well, that's what I asked. But it's a valid thing.
Oh yeah.
But you're very likely to find
I want to operate on 6 metres, so I've got to get my antenna high.
You're very likely to find that if you go through the calculator, you don't need 10 metres anyway.
That doesn't work.
It will for the calculator.
Yeah, I know. Doesn't work for DX, though, does it?
No.
Yeah.
Fuck the council.
You've only got to remember, you only have to have that barrier in place for you.
Yeah, well, I'll put it this way. I don't think you can use this as an excuse to go higher than.
No. That's not what I was saying. What I was saying is that if you went to the council and they asked you why do you need to go higher,
You have a safety argument.
then you have a safety argument. It's not, I just want to put my antennas higher. No.
Yeah. You can try it.
Yeah.
What happens?
Give you a test case.
Excellent. I need to get a house first.
You're probably not going to do any harm by trying it. I think the council's more likely to just say, what the hell's this? And, you know, just look at the visual impact issues.
It becomes too hard too quick for them.
Usually as long as the neighbours are on side, it doesn't matter.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments about exclusions?
I thought about using a pump-up tower.
Yeah.
Use a pump-up tower. Just pump it up when you need it and bring it back down when you need it.
Don't pump it up. Don't you go pump it up. Sorry,
I found him not me.
I had to.
He's been trained by someone like.
How very dare you?
Okay. All right. Some significant thank yous here. Number one is the RSGB, who have actually they have allowed the WIA to use their calculator and take input from them. So fantastic. Thank you to the WIA. You probably noticed their logo at the front. the education committee, and also Phil is a part of the education committee, and I'll put the link to the education committee site in there because there's a whole range of resources on that site, which is fantastic. John Booz, VK4 JBE, who's the vice president of the Bayside District Amateur Radio Society, and BDARS as well for sharing the presentation, and also the amateurs who shared their antennas. Thank you. Yeah, please go and put the other antennas that you've got up there in there and see where they land. So now we have a follow-up. In November at our forum night, we're going to have a EMR safety quiz night. There'll be prizes. So
You could break the calculator.
So well,
The prize is he's a compliance though, it's not being compliant.
who use the calculator and knows the do's and don'ts of the calculator. And also, what does 6 meters? 6 minutes. Why is it 6 minutes? All that sort of stuff.
10%.
You know. So yeah. So our November forum night is actually an EMR safety quiz night. So and a huge can we show our appreciation of Phil, who's been Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been great.
And this will be up on the website, and we'll put all those links in the next day or so. So come back in about a day, and they should be all there. So it's good.